Republican presidential candidate, Dr. Ben Carson. Before I introduce Dr. Carson, I want to remind all of our listeners to please push 9 to join the queue, and you'll have an opportunity to ask a question of presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson directly. This is a live phone call, and we're going to get through as many questions as possible today. And if we're unable to get to your question, and you have one, you really, really want to ask one of Dr. Carson, every participant will have an opportunity to leave a message for Dr. Carson or for me at the conclusion of this call. And so, Dr. Carson, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. And I know that Arizonans, a great state, are so honored to have the opportunity to speak directly with you and hear from you, especially as you're leading the Republican primary field. And so I'll remind everybody to please push 9 to ask Dr. Carson a question. And Dr. Carson, thank you again for being on, and take a few moments to say hello.
Well, Sheriff, it's always delightful to talk to you. I'll never forget the trip down there and see the incredible work that you're doing and your deputies are doing, but also seeing the frustration because, you know, there's no support from the federal government, or at least very limited support. And so often, you know, the measures are rendered ineffective because there's no backup. You know, I can't get out of my mind how I felt when I saw the fence with no border security and saw holes cut in the fence with a couple of pieces of barbed wire strung across that wouldn't even stop our cameramen from going over to the other side so they could shoot from the other side. And then, you know, the families that were in that area, and talking to some of those families who are at great peril living there because they're brave and, you know, these are their homesteads and they're just not willing to give them up. And yet you guys support them very well, but there's no support from the federal level for those individuals. So I was most impressed by the fact that you told me that in Yuma County, Arizona, utilizing the right set of circumstances, they were able to decrease the illegal flow by 97%. And that's without some of the additional monitoring equipment and motion detecting devices that we have now. So
you're right.
I don't think in any way that it's an impossible thing for us to shut down the border and gain control of it. The ability to do it is there. It's just the will that is not to do it.
That is so true. And when we had you, we started out 7:30 in the morning in Pinell County with all of our staff, and spent the entire day with you and your wife Candy until 10 o'clock that night. So you saw firsthand, you know, what was happening. And I just want to tell all the listeners to please push 9 on your phone now to enter into the queue if you have a question that you'd like to ask Dr. Ben Carson. And just was amazed when not just your reaction and Candy's reaction, but when we took you up in our helicopter, showed you actually the caves where the cartel scouts use as a lookout 30 days at a time. Just this past year alone, we've arrested now 19 cartel scouts. And quite frankly, most of them that we try to capture or arrest get away. And that's the sad fact. And I think you even mentioned that, you know, how is this the job of the local sheriff, right?
Exactly. And then, you know, there were so many people in the last couple of years that have been detained, and then ICE comes along and tells you you have to release them. And,
exactly.
And not only release them, but release them amongst the American population.
And that's exactly what's happening. We see illegals who have been arrested for state crimes, our deputies, and these illegals, these criminals say they've been deported 6 times, 12 times, 14 times. We even had one a few months back say they've been deported over 20 times. And so the lack of consequences that you speak to and understand is very real for us, and we shouldn't expect anything else but the continuation of this under President Obama. until there's real consequences for breaking the law.
Yeah. Sometimes it almost seems as if ICE and the federal government is working against the people of the United States. I hope they're not doing that purposely, but that, in effect, is what's happening.
You're right. Well, all the listeners, please push 9 to be entered into the queue to ask a question. And to your point, Dr. Carson, when you say you hope that ICE isn't working against us, it's hard for myself as a sheriff. All the sheriffs of our state of Arizona, all 15 of us came out, and only half of us are Republican like me. The other half are Democrat, and we had one unified voice saying the system is broken completely. And you saw that they released in one day 3 dangerous criminals that weren't even they weren't Hispanic. One was from Iraq, one was from Sudan, and the other was from Russia. And they released that Russian right in the very town that you came and visited me in Florence, Arizona.
Yeah, I've heard several reports over the last few weeks about people from other countries across the sea. So it's not just the Hondurans and the Mexicans that we're worried about here by any stretch of the imagination. And when you consider that there's a global jihad movement going on and that they are very desirous of planting, their people within our society, we should be doubly concerned about this rather than lackadaisical.
So true, and I wish other leaders would understand that. And for all the listeners, please push 9 on your phone to be able to ask a question directly of Dr. Carson. We have a number in the queue now. We have Billy from Oro Valley that has a question. Go ahead, Billy, with your question.
Thank you. First of all, Dr. Carson, thank you so much for appearing. It's been a pleasure to watch you and during the debates, and I do support you. I made my decision the first debate.
Okay.
My question for you is I'd like you in as brief amount of time as possible to be as specific as you can be as to what your intentions are to secure the border across the southern portion of the United States.
Well, first of all, I think you have to have a physical barrier there. And what has worked in the past has been a double fence with an asphalt road in between, which allows rapid access of vehicles by the Border Patrol. I would also station Border Patrol agents within visual sight of each other. That's usually like a quarter of a mile or so. So that there really is no area that isn't being guarded. And I think you have to prosecute first-time offenders rather than the catch-and-release program that we have now. Absolutely. I think in addition to that, we can introduce, motion detecting devices. We can introduce drones so that we can get early warning whether someone is actually approaching the barrier. I think those kinds of things will shut it down completely, and it's easily doable.
Well, that's exactly what the proof of concept is, as you keep referring to the Yuma sector and what happened there. That's we should do on all 9 sectors of the border. We have the next question that's up. For all listeners, please press 9 to be entered in to be able to ask a question directly of Dr. Carson. And now we have Kinsey from Scottsdale. Kinsey, go ahead with your question to Dr. Carson. Well, we'll try. Kinsey's no longer on the line. We have Milton from Maricopa. Go ahead with your question, Milton. Dr. Carson, while we're trying to get another call,
figure out what's going on
the line. Yeah, well, something you mentioned and we talked about down in Yuma, what was used.
Please press 1 to leave voicemail.
Please leave your message after the tone. When done, press pound or stay on the line to return to the conference call. Otherwise, hang up.
Hi, this is Samia, and I'm asking a question for one of our viewers, Dee.
Thank you.
Carrier, why not use them on the border? Why not use some of our returning veterans who are looking for a job? I think we have adequate people and adequately trained people in order to do it. And I can't think of a better usage for them, to be honest with you. And there's not a lot of other places that don't protect their borders. Why are we the lone ones who just kind of neglect it and think it's going to take care of itself?
So true. I oftentimes refer to Korea and the fact that we have 28,600 service members there today guarding, protecting, defending their border, and we do this for nations around the world. Why don't we put America first and put our national security first and use our military to do it? So, agreed.
Exactly. And it's not just a matter of being mean. Some people say, well, we're being mean, we should be able to take care of everybody. But the fact of the matter is, you look at the drug traffic that's coming through there. You look at the amount of heroin that is coming through there, and we have a heroin epidemic with addiction going on in our country. I mean, this is an easy first step. It's not the only step, obviously, in getting rid of heroin addiction, but it's an easy first step that should be taken.
So true. And now we have Jim from Maricopa. Jim, go ahead with your question to Dr. Carson.
Thank you, Dr. Carson, for taking my call. I think I'm part of a group of growing people who have a concern relative to our southern border. Part of it is obvious, and part of it, I think, is kind of being swept under the rug relative to the probability of ISIS agents infiltrating that border and setting up themselves in parts of the country. I was just wondering what your cohesive and coherent plan is for addressing that problem.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because obviously, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, some of the people who have been captured coming through there are from other places, from the Middle East, from Russia, and obviously we can easily infiltrate the population that is coming through that porous border. But it also highlights the fact that we need to be thinking about all of our borders, not just the southern borders. We need to be thinking about our border with Canada. We need to be talking about the Atlantic and the Pacific borders and utilizing a whole series of mechanisms to ensure that we keep people out who are intending harm for our citizens.
Please press 1 to leave voicemail.
Please leave your message after the tone. When done, press pound or stay on the line to return to the conference call. Otherwise, hang up.
Hi, Dr. Carson. I wanted to ask you a question on behalf of some of our viewers. This one comes in from Jeff. Dr. Carson, should legal immigration be increased, decreased, or held steady?
Thank you.
And everything that has anything to do with America.
All listeners, please press 9 if you want to ask a question of Dr. Carson. And now we're going to go to Kinsey in Scottsdale. Kinsey, go ahead with your question.
Yes, sir. I thank you so much, Mr. Carson, for talking to me. I got into a Twitter spat with an individual after the last debate. He said you were too religious and it was scary. And my point was that I believe having a religious upbringing provides you with a good moral compass, and that because of your religious background, I trust you as a leader. I mean, what do you say to people that say having a religious background or being religious is scary? I think that that's insulting. And I don't want to live in a world where being a religious person is a negative thing.
Well, I would say that our nation was founded by people who had a religious background, Judeo-Christian values, and much of our Constitution was based on Judeo-Christian values and principles. When you look at our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, it talks about certain inalienable rights given to us by our Creator. When you say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, it says we are one nation under God. Take your wallet out and look at every bill in there. It says, "In God we trust." And you look at every coin, it says, "In God we trust." So you know what I say to those people? I say, if you have such a phobia about God, just give me all your money. I'll take some of your anxiety away, since you won't have to look at those words anymore. We have to recognize that there's nothing wrong with a life of faith, a life that indicates that there is such a thing as right and wrong, a life that helps you to relate to your fellow man in a loving and compassionate way, and gives you a value system that is uplifting rather than one that leads you to want to denigrate and destroy other individuals. I think that's a good thing. I think it's one of the things that allowed this nation to rise from nowhere, not only to the pinnacle of the world, but to the highest pinnacle any nation had ever reached before. Having said that, I also believe very strongly in our Constitution, and that people are free to believe as they wish to believe. And I would never try to impose my beliefs upon others, but I don't think they should be able to impose their disbelief on me.
Well said. Well, for listeners, you're welcome to join in the conversation. Have a question directly to Dr. Carson by pushing 9 on your phone now, and you'll be in the queue. And the next question is from Milton in Maricopa. Milton, go ahead with your question to Dr. Carson.
Yes, Dr. Carson. I'm a vet, and I.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my thoughts were sort of heavy with the people that gave their lives for this country, and it's funny what people say about God, but I'll tell you what: when you're in a foxhole, you're a believer, and you're a believer. But my main question is, I'm thinking common sense. I don't understand. Since the lawyers took over our government, okay, no one seems to use their common sense for the purposes of serving the people of this country. And I don't know how we're going to change that, but my main point is on the wall, and I know you've discussed it, in depth with other people here. How quickly can we get a wall up of whatever type that's effective? Working through Congress and the Senate, how quickly can we get this done? I mean, because time is not on our side.
Okay, let's finish up so he can answer the question.
Well, interestingly enough, we talked about, how we were going to employ people with shovel-ready projects. Well, that's one right there. That's very shovel-ready. All we have to do is agree upon doing it. And I believe that we wouldn't have any problem with doing that in less than a year. I would, I don't make political promises, but that's as close to one I would make is that I think that could be done in less than a year.
Very direct answer. Now we have Rosalie from Yuma. Rosalie, go ahead with your question to Dr. Carson.
Hi. I want to ask what your steps for immigration as far as all the illegals that are currently in the country, as well as the health care, how they have changed the health care. What do you feel? Mostly I'm interested in the timeline that you think immigration, the illegals, could be turned around in some different kind of status, and how that would be accomplished. What kind of time frame are you thinking in?
Well,
and then healthcare, what they should receive in healthcare and how that should be dealt with fiscally.
Okay. Those are two very good questions. Well, first of all, as I've mentioned before, I think we can secure the border in less than a year. I think along with doing that, we have to eliminate what I call the goodies, the various benefits that people can get, whether they're here legally or illegally. If they're here illegally, there should be no benefits that they can get. End of story. I think that will greatly decrease the attraction of this country, particularly when you combine it with a barrier. Now, we do have to recognize that that still leaves 11.5+ million people who are already here. And the question is, what would you do with those? Well, if they have a pristine record, they're not criminals, I would give them an opportunity to get registered. And you have to define the period of time. I would make it 6 months. If they don't get registered during that 6-month period, they are illegals and will be treated, accordingly. But if they get registered during that time and they have a pristine record, they will be able to be guest workers in specific areas where we need guest workers. They have to pay a back tax penalty, and they have to pay taxes going forward. The employers would also have to agree to their health care, and paying at least a portion of their health care. They would have to pay the other portion. They may not be here, and they may not qualify for that program unless they do that. And I think that is a fair way of doing it. Now, they don't get voting rights, and they don't get citizenship. They are just what I described, guest workers. If they want to become citizens of America, then they have to go through exactly the same process as anybody else who wants to become a citizen of America. They don't get a special shortcut because they got in here in an illegal way.
Excellent. The next question we have from John in Phoenix. John, go ahead with your question to Dr. Carson. John, go ahead with your question.
I was hoping you're talking to me.
Yes.
My question was, with all these sanctuary cities, we need to bring a stop to it and give our sheriff's department, Sheriff Babu, as well as my favorite sheriff, Arpaio, the chance to do their job. And it's being taken away from them.
You're exactly right. I mean, the whole concept of the sanctuary city goes against the grain of common sense. And, in a Carson administration, any sanctuary city, as far as I'm concerned, would suffer extremely heavy penalties financially. And we would basically starve them out because we must at some point begin to take into consideration the citizens of America. And, when you think about what happened to Kate Steinle, I mean, just being out there walking along the pier with her father and being brutally murdered by somebody who's been here illegally multiple times, been deported multiple times, comes back, and now is benefiting from the sanctuary city status. And the only thing that really shocks me is that there are people who think that that's okay. American citizens who actually think that's okay. That is truly amazing, and it shows you, how far we've gotten away from the concept of values and principles that made America into a great nation.
Oh, that's so true, Dr. Carson. This is Sheriff Paul back. That we see there's 300 approximate sanctuary cities across the country, and it's just as bad for these sanctuary cities as it is for the federal government to say local, county, state law enforcement can't partner with them to help enforce immigration law. And now these local jurisdictions are saying, no, if we have a bad guy who happens to be an illegal, we're not going to turn them over to ICE. In fact, we're not even going to let them know. That's how screwed up things have gotten with immigration.
And that's one of the reasons, if you read the Constitution, that there is a prioritizing of power, and the federal government sits at the apex of that system for this very kind of reason.
So true. We have, going to our last question, I know we have a lot of people holding, and we have now Jack and Prescott. Jack, go ahead with your question to Dr. Carson.
Dr. Carson, I have been supporting you financially for here and there a little bit.
Thank you. But
my question is, well, what is your plan for securing our borders, specifically the southern and northern borders?
Okay. You might have missed it. We went through that previously. But I do want to thank you, for your financial support. Just as an update for people, we now have had over 900,000 donations, with the average donation being $50, which puts us way ahead of most of the field financially, without licking the boots of billionaires or special interest groups. And that will continue to be the way that we do things. But just briefly, in terms of how we fill the border, we put in a double fence with an asphalt road between so that there's quick access for security vehicles. We actually put people on the border, actual border guards, believe it or not. We can utilize the National Guard to supplement that. And we prosecute first-time offenders. When people will know that they are not getting a free pass. Right now, we just catch them and release them the first time around. And many times, even the second or third time, we're not doing a whole lot to them. That would no longer happen in the southern border. Now, as far as the northern border with Canada is concerned, we can use, I think that's sort of a very good area to, again, place border guards. I don't know that you necessarily need to put the fence in unless it becomes clear that there's the same kind of flow that we're dealing with on the southern border. But utilizing motion detectors and drones and things of that nature gives you the kind of warning that you need as long as you have somebody to whom to report the infraction. So that's why you would use border guards along those areas as well.
Excellent response, and just to the point, 2,000 miles on our southwest border, 6,000 on our border with Canada. And I got in a little argument with former Secretary Janet Napolitano, and I was talking about all these resources that we need on the southwest border to secure the border, and she stopped me mid-sentence and said, Sheriff, I'm the Secretary of Homeland Security for the whole country, for the ports and up in Canada. You know, we've got 6,000 miles up there. And my retort back to her was, we don't have 1 million people coming across the Canadian border. And that's the point here. This past year, 500,000 illegals, and then all these cartels we're fighting. And then, as you pointed out, Dr. Carson, the prospect of the enemies of our country, ISIS and potential terrorists that would come across this porous border.
Exactly. And, they pay attention to what's going on and to what we're not doing, and they take advantage of it. So, we have to be the kind of people who can use common sense and can use their smarts and can use our technology. And, there are a lot of technological advances that have been made that, most people don't know about, which can be employed also.
So true. Today's Teletown Hall was actually sponsored by the Arizona Security and Prosperity Project, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit 501c4. To learn more about the organization and to watch our interview with Dr. Carson, to listen, find out when other calls with presidential candidates will take place, go to our website, ArizonaSecurityandProsperityProject.com. Regrettably, we're not able to get through all the other questions that we have waiting. And for anyone wishing to leave a comment for Dr. Carson or me, please stay on the line and leave your message. And we'll be sending all of those comments directly to Dr. Carson's campaign. And I want to thank you, Dr. Carson. I had the privilege to spend time with you and see firsthand your passion for our country and wanting to restore us to a country that respects the rule of law. And thanks for respecting the Arizona Republican voters who joined in today's call. And we just wish you the very best, because what's on the line is the future of our republic.
Well, thank you so much, Sheriff, and thanks for the very hard work you're doing. I always love coming to Arizona. It's one of the places where people have common sense. A lot of them do, and a lot of courage. And to those people who are living along the border, who are being terrorized, hang in there, because help is on the way. So thank you, Sheriff. Please give regards to all of the wonderful people I met when I was down there. I look forward to seeing you again.